Hello everyone, welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly. I am your host, your guide, if you will, on this wonderful podcast that we have. We talk with artists throughout the Northland region, our little slice of paradise all the way down in New Zealand, Aotearoa. It's lovely to have you. Thank you very much for stopping by. If you're a return visitor, thank you so much for continuing to support us. If you're new here, kia ora, welcome. Lovely to have you here. We have, actually, you know what? Today's artist is really, really interesting. So what we started doing this year is we've started having artists that have come into the region as well and trying to capture them as guests for the podcast. The reason being is because it's not that we've gotten through all of the artists in Northland. Lordy, no, definitely not. But when we get some very interesting artists coming in to Northland as a whole, it's nice to capture those conversations because, you know, it's just another way to learn more about people and their discipline they have. I'm going to throw to my camera now. So today's artist, a multidisciplinary artist, if you will, is Tracey Benson, or Dr Tracey Benson, or Dr Tracey Benson with a couple of master's degrees and some other bits and pieces after that as well. This was so cool, so hilarious, wildly funny podcast. Tracey was, when we filmed this, I'd met Tracey 3 days prior. And a mutual friend and former podcast guest, Dr Maggie Buxton, kind of, we'll just say, convinced Tracey to come on and sit down and chat. And she was cool. She was such a good sport. Made time for us, came in, sat down. A lot of laughs were shared, and it was an absolute hoot. There is I will say this at the start of the podcast when Tracey and I are first talking, there is a mildly inappropriate joke. So I will just preface it by saying that it's nothing meant serious. It's only ever in jest. You know, we're the podcast that likes to have a bit of a laugh and keep things casual and informal whilst still using it as a learning platform to learn about all our artists. So let's get stuck into that, shall we? Let's sit down and have a conversation with Tracey Benson. What time do you fly out tomorrow, just out of curiosity?
I'm not flying out. I am driving down to Parihaka. So going down to New Plymouth, Taranaki.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say Parihaka. But Parihaka's here.
No.
There's another Parihaka, isn't there?
Yeah.
Of course there is.
Yeah. Because
we're so bad it's called Parahaki.
Oh, really?
I know we are terrible, but it is Parihaka. It should be. It's Producer Andrew. It is meant to be Parihaka, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah,
thank you.
Changed 07?
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Was Parahaki.
So how come it's the same as the one in Taranaki?
So it was called Parahaki because people of my persuasion got it wrong.
Oh.
So it was always that name.
It was always meant to be that name. We just spelt it like plonkers.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But anyway, Tracey Benson! Welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. She's like, how the hell did we segue here?
Hi!
Much like Caitlyn Jenner, I do awkward transitions. So...
Okay.
Don't know why I thought...
And you kept the beard.
I did. I'm not going to say the rest of the joke that I'm just thinking of in my head right now. We're going to keep it PG, even though it's not for kids. By the way, if you're a sweary person, you're allowed to.
Oh,
it's
good.
Totally fine.
Okay.
If swearing's your next, you know, if it's kind of like you've got the trucker mouth, or I guess the Northern Territory mouth, just go for gold.
Yes, well, I have lived there.
Okay.
Yeah. Can drop the odd F-bomb.
F-bomb, yes. Yeah. I have a few Australian friends that are rather prolific with the C-bomb.
Oh, yeah, I'm not into
as
that
well.
one.
Yeah, okay. Each to their own, I say. It's like, well, good for you guys. It's quite harsh when you say it. I know what you mean by it, but pretty sure there's other...
It's like your best friend.
Yeah. there's a meme I saw a few years ago. It's got an Australian guy because he's holding a can of VB, and he says, calls strangers calls people he doesn't know mates, calls mates.
Yep.
C-bomb. And I was like, yep, sounds like my mates. Pretty accurate.
Have you seen the stickers though? Like see you in the NT?
No.
Oh,
See you in the Northern Territory.
Yeah. That was like a tourist campaign for the Northern Territory. See you.
Yeah.
Yep.
In Northern Territory.
Yeah.
Well, because the other one I've heard of is I used to, at a previous job I worked with, my rep who would come and visit me would call me the week before just to remind me, and he would always book on either a Tuesday or a Thursday, and he'd be like, see you next Tuesday, or see you next Thursday. Like, thanks, man, appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know, how quickly we've gone off the rails.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay. So thank you very much for joining us. I do appreciate it. I'm going to bring it back with a little bit of professionalism. It's bloody terrible. But it is, like we did say before, it is very informal. So, you've
cool.
had a bit of a laugh right from the start.
Cool.
Yes, an appropriate laugh. Anyway.
Laughing about swearing. That's
we're laughing about swear words. That's fine. That's totally cool. I'm good with that. You are an incredibly busy lady. Because you're currently here on loan to us from Australia. So why are you in Whangarei? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, sure. I'm here with Maggie Buxton and Arfie World. So I've known Maggie and Kim for quite a few years, and I came over late last year for Plant Lab.
That was the kind of the older version of this that we're doing now, but that was last year, eh?
Yeah. So they had this little shop that they occupied, and I came over with some work and we collaborated on that, and we've sort of just kept talking since then. And then Maggie invited me to come over this year and give a workshop and play in the BIOS space down at Whangarei Art Museum, which has been a lot of fun. Yeah,
it's we've done some filming since, when the incubator first started, and the whole BIOS project has been amazing to see. We were there on opening day, and it was funny just talking to people. They had the young kids, what do they call it? FOMO, fear of missing out.
Oh yeah.
Because the BIOS was never going to be the same each day. It was always going to be different, which is just so cool. I mean, how many art exhibitions can you say, well, it's going to be different tomorrow, and it'll be different, something completely fundamentally different on Thursday. So we'll see you next Thursday. And
which is tomorrow.
Which is, funnily enough, tomorrow. We're recording this on a Wednesday. So from your perspective, how is it different this year from last year?
Well, for one thing, I'm here a bit longer. So I was only literally here for 2 or 3 days last year.
Oh, wow.
And also a much bigger space
Yes.
that we're playing in. And a broader, like, Plant Lab was very much focused on the theme of plants, whereas BIOS, I think, is a more overarching concept.
Yeah.
And,
I kind of thought of it as like biotechnology type stuff. Would that be right to say?
Yeah, there's definitely that's playing in the space, and also there's much more good gadgetry in the space, like a bigger space to play in. And I think overall it's a bigger program, because it's tied to the incubator, and which I don't know so much about, but. Yeah, but it's it's a nice continuation though, I think, and lots of fun to be in a space where it's not about exhibition outputs, it's actually just about process and playing.
Yeah. I was down there on Sunday doing some filming, and they had Thotho, Vivian Thomas, and is it Alan Thonger?
Other way around, Alan Thomas and Vivian Thonger.
There we go. I knew I'd get it wrong, but then they had a dancer, and I was just like, this is amazing. You know, you can just, what are you going to do on Sunday? Well, I'm just going to go down and have a look at the art museum. Well, look, I'm getting interpretive dance, I'm getting music, and I'm getting some spoken word stuff. Just brilliant. And watching everyone the three of them interact with the different spaces and colours and lighting was just amazing. Even my son, who's 11 and a half and has just got no clue about art, was like, whoa. I was like, yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, and and Kim sort of there with his trolley doing all the VJing at the same time, which was sort of, another sort of collaborator in the space. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun that afternoon. I didn't stay for the whole afternoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was lovely seeing how they were interacting with each other as well, especially Sharon. The dancer and Vivian, there was some moments where they were just playing off each other really beautifully and just doing mad fun things.
Yeah, and it was so out of the box. It's not, I've been to a few art exhibitions in my time, not to sound douchey or pretentious, but to see something like that where it's ever evolving, it was funny. I interviewed some people on the Saturday when it first opened. Got to sit down and do some sit-down interviews with people and talk with them about what their first thoughts were. And but the last question I asked everyone was, do you think there is a place for something like this in Whangarei as a permanent fixture? And the resounding response was yes. If it was a set space, but if it was ever evolving. So it wasn't like... And this week we have David Smith's photographic exhibition entitled "Plant Meets Concrete." Nothing quite like that, but it's something you could kind of go to, and it would it's because it's always evolving. It's like its own organic entity.
Yeah, nice.
Which segues me to you, because we've talked a lot about BIOS. But I'd like to learn more about you, if that's okay.
Yes.
It is. Good. Now, you... People that are listening and watching the podcast, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm going to fuck up a few names here, and they're Australian, and I apologise in advance. On the lovely sheet, you were born in... Ningi?
Yeah, Ningi.
Was it close?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
But then in brackets, you've put Cubby Cubby.
Cubby Cubby Nation or Gubby Gubby Nation. It depends on which part of the nation you're talking about. So that's the nation.
Here we go.
Ningi is the, I guess, the skin name or the tribal group, which are part of the bigger nation, if that makes sense. I will plead ignorant and say no. So Ning. Oh, I got to make sure I get this right. Yeah. I'm going to make a meal of this, producer Andrew. Watch me. It's like a white guy understanding pronouns. Ningi is the tribe. Cubby Cubby is the location of the tribe in relation to the area. It is the nation. Yeah. So. Think of it as its own country.
Right, okay.
And then Ningi is a state within the nation.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Hui, okay. But that's still in Australia, right?
Yes.
Right, okay.
And I could be not 100% right on that either because I am a white fella. But that's my understanding of it.
Okay. So, I'm a white fella. That's brilliant. So... Your parents grew up in an Aboriginal? No?
No, I use those words, out of respect and recognition for the places where I've lived. And I think that's to a real response to where we're at in Australia right now, where it's been a really long time to actually even get to this place. I think in Aotearoa, New Zealand, you've actually been really ahead in terms of... having bilingual understandings of place and...
Agreed, yeah.
And even having language, whereas, in Australia it's been quite a long journey. And,
okay.
And I think that especially I think maybe the last 5 or 10 years and as things like acknowledgement of country have become more commonplace and more, just the protocol that we do. People are more acknowledging the places according to the names that they were pre-colonisation.
Right. Okay. Yeah. A classic example of that for New Zealand, Aotearoa, is Mount Egmont. Mm-hmm. It's called Mount Egmont for years, but now known as Mount Taranaki, which makes sense, right? Because that's what it was originally called. The colonisers came over and were like, no, it's called Egmont. Made no sense. As someone who, it's been a while since I've been in school, but we were always taught to say names properly. When I was growing up, there was a lot of laziness around certain names. So Taupo instead of Taupo, Wakatane instead of Whakatane. The names were there, but they were still pronounced incorrectly. Nowadays, I think we're a lot better at it and a lot more respect, because that's what it is, right? It's respectful.
Totally.
Because that's the important thing. Now, what was it like growing up in... Okay, so you were born in Ningi.
Yep.
Okay.
Cliff.
Grew up in Larrakia County, which is in Darwin.
Yep.
What was schooling like for you growing up, just in general? Because,
Yeah, well, when I guess I was in Brisbane, or as a younger child, it was fairly monocultural, and and then when we moved to Darwin, I think I was about 10 or 11. And,
oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, and it was extremely culturally diverse. It was the complete opposite of what I'd experienced, and I think as a young kid, that was really a great place to grow up, because it was actually just not long after the cyclone. So it was a couple of years after Cyclone Tracey.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was devastating, that one.
Yeah. So, and that's why our family went up there. So it was sort of quite and it's still, people think of it as a frontier town.
Okay.
Like end of the universe kind of feeling.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. It's pretty isolated, but, I think it was a great place to grow up, because it was so, it was a lot freer, and, you didn't have the distractions, I guess, that I had, when I was in Brisbane. Like, we didn't have TV until 6 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
TV at 6?
Yeah.
The youth of today wouldn't know how to cope.
Well, do they watch TV anymore?
No, it's all on their bloody phones, if we're honest. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true, though. Yeah. But no, it was. I loved it. I loved growing up there, and I've still got friends who I connect with.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I haven't been up there for a few years, but I was going up every year before COVID, and I'm probably due for another visit. But yeah, my parents ended up living up there for about 25 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, your creative output is quite hard to define, I feel, because you are a multi-talented, multidisciplined artist. You have a few things that you do, right? I'm curious, what was the very first creative thing you remember doing?
Definitely, I think it was camera. It was taking photos.
Right. Okay.
And I like drawing, but as doing sketching, I always wanted to be very photographic in my sketching.
Right.
And that used to frustrate me, because I couldn't draw like a photograph. Yeah. So it was definitely playing with cameras growing up. Yeah.
Now, we're talking pre-digital, we're talking film, right? Where you take your 24 or 36 photos and then you've got to wait a week for them to come back.
Yep.
You might have to drop them off at the chemist and then hope they come back. Are we talking those times, or are we talking a little bit earlier than that?
Definitely talking, like box brownie.
Oh, wow.
Well, that was my dad's camera, but little Instamatic. And then Polaroid. I think I had a Polaroid.
Oh.
when I was in my late teens, which was just a fun camera. But didn't actually get an SLR till I was probably in my late teens.
Okay, yep.
And started, I guess, playing in darkroom around, sort of around that time as well. Yeah.
What do you think? I have to make sure I word this correctly. I'm going to trip myself up. What do you think it was about photography that drew you to it?
I don't know. Actually, that's an interesting question. I think one thing that fascinated me, my uncle is also, he trained as a cinematographer, and photography and filmmaking was sort of something in my family.
Yeah.
But my grandparents' house in Brisbane was one of those classic Queenslanders, that were on stumps. And underneath the house, most of it was just dirt.
Yeah.
But they had this funky little weird dark room.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember as a kid being fascinated by this dark room because my uncle as a teenager had so he's 80 this year, so this would have been in the 60s, early 60s. He had painted all of these weird psychedelic eyeballs and things like that. And the inside, and I was like, always wanted to go in there as a kid and I don't know, and play.
Yeah.
And it was definitely not a place for me to go and play. It was a no-go zone. So I guess I was intrigued by what the dark room was.
Yeah.
And then to actually, get to a point where I was working in dark room, that was just a form of magic, to be in the dark room and see what appears. I think that's a whole, it's just a reveal that's really fun. And
it's very magical, the combination of film, paper, and essentially liquids that produce this image that you've taken X amount of time ago.
Yeah.
It's very transformative because you get to watch that whole process. I remember visiting a dark room. I was probably a bit later in life. I would have said probably late 20s, but just watching that process, like, oh, that's how it's done. Wow, it's pretty smelly.
Yeah.
Definitely some strong smells off those chemicals. You wouldn't want to spend like a day in there.
Yep.
Without a mask.
Yes, definitely. But there's been lots of improvements made on that.
Yes, there has been. Maybe not so much back then. So you're in high school. Are you developing your film in a dark room at school, or or have you gone?
Went to TAFE.
What is TAFE, please?
It's like tech. So it's sort of
like North Tech type thing?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
It's like more vocational education.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I dropped out of school in the end of year 11. I was really wanting to go to art school. My parents weren't so keen for me to do that, so I dropped out.
We've heard a lot of parents are like that on this podcast.
Yeah, they're not, parents are usually sensible, want sensible things for their kids, so...
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so I sort of, I guess I faffed around for a couple of years and worked in a bank and I was a checkout chick at Kmart for a while.
Okay. Man, we're getting into it. This is awesome.
And then decided I would try and get into art school and went to TAFE from there. So I guess I was around 20.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Did you do much photography in high school?
No, we didn't actually. All the photography I did was really my own stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, high school we did a lot of drawing and printmaking we did do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that's been something that when I was at TAFE, I sort of did combine printmaking and photography.
Yeah.
So all the smelly chemical things I liked.
Just getting high off chemicals.
Pretty much. We had good ventilation though.
You damn well hope so. Don't want to be locked in a room going, here's a room. Create some shit.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm going to create is a loss of brain cells.
True.
When you were doing your gap years, were you still doing things creatively, or were you just like, working 9 to 5 or whatever the jobs were?
I think I was still drawing and writing.
Writing's new.
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah. Well, I mean, I do write, but I guess it's not my primary practice.
Yep.
Yeah. Always been a bit of a frustrated writer on the side. But, that was more poetic writing, but I think too, in those years I was just really socialising. I think most of my time that I wasn't working was just hanging out and partying with my friends. So
well, I think a lot of us have done that in our late teens and early 20s.
Yeah.
Can we get a
Try me in my 30s, bro.
All right, producer Andrew is still currently doing it, apparently. Good for you.
Yeah. That's good. Like, it's nearly 9 o'clock, I'm tired.
He'll go to the gym after this.
Oh, my God.
So you get to TAFE, and then suddenly you've got to be quite disciplined. It's not just like, today the muse is not flowing through me, I shall not be creating. It's like, no, you've got assignments, you've got projects, you've got essays, shit's got to get done.
Yeah.
And was that for you a fundamental shift from going working party to assignment, really got no life?
Yeah, I think it was a big learning curve. So that was a bit of a challenge. But one thing I do remember absolutely loving is we used to do life drawing on Fridays.
Okay, yeah.
And we hated life drawing, and we used to have to do like a 2-hour session before lunch, and then we were meant to go back after lunch and do another. Like, it was pretty much the whole day life drawing.
Yeah, wow.
And we used to go down, my best girlfriend and I used to go down the pub at lunchtime, play pool, and we never go back.
Right.
But we got the rest of our assignments done. But
many a project completed barely.
Yeah. But, quite often we were not the only people down at the pub from art school after lunch.
Yes. As someone who did a drama, I can say that, yes, that does happen. Yeah. More than people think.
Yeah.
And we've got vocal lessons today. Do we really? The only vocal lessons will be karaoke after a couple of pints.
Yeah, totally. So life drawing was really, and I think that maybe the teachers knew that it was just going to suck the life out of everybody. So we do it on Fridays. So, yeah.
One of the organisations that proudly supports the Northland Artists Conversation is Creative Northland. I'm going to take just a moment to talk to you guys about it. Creative Northland have been absolutely vital in helping this project get off the ground through its infancy and all the way through to where we are now. We couldn't have done what we've done without their assistance. What we suggest is that if you're a creative person and you haven't heard of Creative Northland, we highly recommend that you reach out to them. Creative Northland, simply do a Google search. They're the top result. These guys are wonderful. They're all creatives in their own way, and they're all very, very well respected throughout the industry that they work in. They're very hardworking, absolutely committed and dedicated to helping the creative people throughout Northland, whether it be through simple things like starting up a project, all the way through to putting on like an exhibition, for example, all the way through to working out how they can start turning what they do into a business. It's all free advice. They give really, really good guidelines and helpful assistance to make sure that you, as a creative, are able to get the most out of what you do. Creative Northland, highly recommend them. Check them out. Having had Friday Artsies Beersies, how long were you at TAFE, and then what did you walk away with, like letters after your name, or was it a precursor to something bigger?
Yeah, it was. It was the course I did at TAFE was an associate diploma, and then then I decided I wanted to keep going, so I did a degree of fine arts.
Oh wow. Okay.
And that gave me my first year. So I went into second year, and I went back to Darwin. So I did TAFE in Sydney, and then I went up to Darwin to into second year of my degree.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I was a bit itinerant in those days. Then decided I didn't want to finish my degree in Darwin and ended up finishing it.
Righty.
Ended up finishing it with at Monash University in Churchill in Victoria.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
it ended up being more of a visual arts degree, not fine arts. So it's the same difference really in those days. But yeah.
What made you go fuck it?
I think Darwin is. I love Darwin, but it can be a very small place,
Okay,
and and I think the art school, it was an interesting. It was a good art school in many ways, but in many ways felt like I needed to stretch myself a bit.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and just I think restless. Like I almost was going to drop out of art school altogether and just wanted to do a road trip.
Oh wow. Wow.
Down the East Coast, which we did. And then but I had this final year, so I did that in Monash at Gippsland. And when I finished, I was 8 months pregnant, so I travelled down with my boyfriend at the time, and then. When I submitted everything for my degree, I was just about ready to become a mum and then moved back to Queensland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So got the letters, moved to Queensland, gave birth.
Pretty much.
Far out.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I think, I had that first year, more or less at home, being full-time mum, and then started to, I guess, be curious about doing a bit of other study. So just started part-time studying. I think when my son was like 14 months old, studied art history.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did a postgrad dip in art history and then followed that with a master's.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
When you just don't have enough letters after your name, add some more.
Yeah. And then that was good. So then enjoyed that, and then decided to move to Canberra and do my PhD, which was
PhD,
which was
it's
not
a doctorate,
easy.
eh?
Yeah,
that is okay. I'm just checking. You might be one of the first doctorates we've had on. So does that make you Dr. Tracey Benson? Holy shit!
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. Technically, I think yes. And Maggie would be like, yes, use your doctor. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Doctor of Philosophy.
Because I was going to say, I've got this, pinging on my knee. Right, okay, that's fine.
I'm not that kind of doctor. If we're on a plane and you have a heart attack, don't look at me. Yeah, definitely not that kind of doctor.
Duly noted.
Yeah, just to be clear. But if you've got, you want to discuss media theory, I could probably help you with that one. Yeah.
That's interesting. So your in your family there was cinematography and stuff like that, and then you've gone into art history, which you would have studied cinema, and was it Australian cinema that you studied, or kind of a bit of everything? No,
actually, my topic in my PhD really looked at online community, and so broadly if you look at my PhD piece of paper, it says media arts and technology,
right?
But the actual topic, it was looking at is there a relationship between online community and real world community? But when I started it, that was arguable. People were like, oh, the internet and the web is nothing's going to come of this, and I sort of looked at the
producer Andrew. Stop laughing.
Yeah, and this is 2001, and one of my main case studies was the refugee activist movement, because they were doing a lot of organising online, and then they were in Australia because of all of the onshore detention stuff. Then they were converging on some of these detention centres, so. That was one example that I used amongst others to show that yes, that what happens online does have an impact in the physical world. So that was sort of that was pretty much a snapshot of what I was looking at.
Okay, so I've got a really burning question just based off what you've said. that was it. Was that a thesis or?
It was both.
Both.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was 50% thesis and 50% studio
Right. Okay.
production. Yeah.
Based off that study, thesis, research that you did in 2001, if you were to go back and look at that now, how relevant would that study be today?
I think it'd still have a lot of relevance, and
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot, particularly with COVID,
Yes.
because we were all pushed into a situation where we were working virtually. And
Welcome to Teams and Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
Great online communities.
Yeah, totally. So, actually when COVID hit, because I never really published anything from the thesis,
Yeah.
I did actually have a brief thought, and it was just a fleeting thought that I might put
Yes.
something together, that I would revisit it and turn into a book.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, that was going to be my next question. Have you thought of revisiting and updating it? Because COVID's a great example. Did you know there were a thing as COVID dates?
Yeah, I reckon there probably would have been.
I'd never heard of it until like a month or two ago. People would, you'd still use the dating apps and stuff, but it would be like, I'm going to give you my Zoom account and let's meet up. And you would literally Zoom and you would have these dates. And I just couldn't get my head around it. It was like, do you sit there with the fake background like, I'm at the beach or I'm skiing in the Alps? And then do you have like a beer or a wine? Do you prepare your own food like you've gone out for dinner? It's just so hard to wrap my head around. But
Yeah, I've not heard of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's... So, listeners and viewers, it's not every day that I can teach a doctor something. But
Very interesting.
Is that something that you would look at doing? Or do you feel that you're kind of past that now?
I don't think I'd look at it straight away. I definitely think it's got legs, but I've just been really busy recently because I finished another degree. I actually did a Master's of Applied Science.
Sorry, I was just about... You got a second degree.
Yeah, so...
Second Master's. But it's not quite a doctorate, though, is it?
No.
But
No.
will it head to the doctorate?
No.
Okay, cool.
Definitely not. My husband has forbidden me from
There will
that.
not be two doctors in this household from the same person.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, I think the beginning of May submitted my thesis on...
Wow.
in applied science. So,
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
amazing.
That was, that really reminded me about why I'm an artist, to be honest.
How so?
I think, one of the things, this actually circles back to why I love the work that I do with Maggie is, I really struggle with these ideas that here's art and art's over here and science is here and this is technology here. And I really am challenged by those categories of things, and academia thrives off those environments, and I guess I've had a fair bit of experience in academia to see that.
That's a polite way of putting it.
And I was really, in the beginning of the master's degree in science, I was really wanting to do something that was going to be interdisciplinary. And as I got deeper into it, I realised that the university was not ready for that, and that it was going to be assessed in very much the framework of science.
Oh, right. Okay.
So
traditional frameworks, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, in my case, it ended up being very much, well, it's under examination at the moment, but the content in the thesis ended up being very much about quantitative analysis of statistics from surveys, and it was, yes.
Sorry.
Totally. And I had this...
longest title ever.
Yeah, I had this idea in the beginning that we would make this VR thing,
Yes.
which was really a cool idea, really great. We did a test of it. then COVID hit. We couldn't run the workshops. We couldn't progress
Oh,
that.
wow.
So then it ended up like, oh, we've got this survey. Let's analyse the crap out of the data in the survey, and bang, this is the thesis. So it really, I think, taught me that, that I'm more drawn to creative ways of thinking about science. And I mean, I am drawn to sciences, but I like the idea of disrupting what it means, to understand things in a certain framework, because I think too, because, even as an artist, the work I do in photography and printmaking is very much, they're scientific chemistry-based processes. You have to understand, so it's not like you're dancing off with the fairies, because you're an artist kind of thing,
There's nothing wrong with that either.
Oh, no, definitely not.
But artistic expression is such a broad term that it can encompass so much, because I'll throw it back to just a second, because you're talking about science and art, right? It's like when you hand develop photos, exposure too long in a certain chemical, not enough time in another, can change the photo that you've taken fundamentally in very, very different ways, because you're taking the science into the creative.
That's right. Yeah, you're starting to play around with the potential outcomes.
So you were doing that without even knowing it, essentially. So where you are now is just a hyper extension of where you started off in the art room, on the dark room.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really great point, because the work that I've been making since I've been here is centered around cyanotypes, where I've actually just had this recycled fabric that I've been exposing in the sun with plants on the top. And, there's been a number of attempts, because when I did some at home, really over the direct sunlight, worked really well. Came over here, the chemicals weren't dry enough, the sun wasn't overhead.
Ah, yes.
Ended up with something that was sort of quite tidal looking.
Yeah.
And had to have a couple of goes, before I actually had something that was working, because of this different humidity, different light, we're further south.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but fun, good to experiment and play.
Yes. What do you feel were your sort of bigger contributions that you made to BIOS while you were here?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think maybe conversations around mangroves, which has been a bit random.
Mangroves, eh?
Mangroves.
I'm just checking. I thought I might have heard mangoes.
Mangoes? No, it's mangroves.
Mangroves. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of mangroves around Northland, the big lots as you head down south. Okay. What about mangroves?
Kim and Maggie and I have been talking about correspondences between our places.
Okay.
And where I live, we have 6 species of mangroves. Like, it's a marine protected area surrounding the island where I live.
Okay. Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, subtropical island.
Hang on, I'm just checking my notes to make sure your last name isn't Branson. No, it is Benson. It's great. Again, another first. We've never had anyone own an island.
No, I definitely don't own it. One of many people who live there. So...
Wow.
And so when I arrived, that conversation was picked up also with Alan and Vivian, because they've
Fofo,
been... Yep. And so there's been sort of Maggie and I collecting images of the mangroves, and Alan and Vivian up where they are, because there was some on their property. They started experimenting with mangrove dye. So that was sort of something that I think might be evolving.
Yeah.
The other thing that has been really nice has been Sharon, who did the performance, the
The
dancer.
dancing, yes.
She played with my fabric in the space today, so we took
Oh, wow.
So she wrapped it around herself, and I probably took about 300 photos of her just moving through the space with this fabric that's got cyanotype printing on it.
Okay.
And that will stay. So when I go back, these pieces of fabric will stay as part of BIOS in the incubator for people to add to.
Yeah.
And I'm facilitating a residency on the island late this year. And Kim definitely, I think, is coming, and maybe Maggie, and they will bring the fabric back with them.
Back with them. Wow.
Yeah. So that's sort of going to be a iterative work.
Yeah.
So, so really responding to your idea about, experimentation, having a space for it. Well, this piece will be a part of that sort of concept.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Far out.
well, I hope so. It's a fun idea, and it's all about experimentation, and we'll just see what evolves. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so as someone who is a multidisciplined creative, what are the next projects that you're looking at? What are you going? That excites me. That seems really interesting.
I think definitely my focus when I get back to Australia is facilitating this residency. It's called Weaving Waters, and it will be an in-person event in late November.
This year.
Yeah,
Yep.
so there'll
Nice.
be up to 24 artists and scientists coming from around the world
Wow.
to the island, and then there'll be a virtual component to that as well.
Yeah.
And the island's the subject, so it and how it corresponds. So the idea of weaving water is very much about weaving our places together, and that water is an element that connects us around the world, and how people sort of have their relational experiences to some of the challenges and things that are important to them about their places.
Definitely.
So that excites me a lot. I think the other couple of things are more writing things that are going on. So I've just started to work with a mentor of mine to write a book.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's sort of, slowly evolving. We've only just had an article published on Leonardo Journal, which is a well-known journal for art science.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so
Nice.
so that was sort of a fun thing that we did together, and then we decided that we'll probably go for a book now. So we'll see, so I'm a bit open-ended now. I've finished the thesis, so I'm just like wanting
What's
to
the next
cruise
steps? Yeah.
a bit, and just sit on the beach for a while, I think.
Well, look, I mean, lots of masters, a doctorate, more letters than you can probably shake a stick at this point.
Yeah.
I'd say you've probably earned a break.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely no formal study.
No,
that's definitely not
No.
on the horizon.
no more.
Yeah, maybe some cooking workshops, some knitting workshops or
Hell
something.
yes.
Yeah.
Definitely all about cooking workshops. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. So, but will you be coming back for the RFE World Incubator BIOS next year? If
I hope
they
so.
have it?
Look, I really hope so. I think that I definitely think that could be on the cards.
Okay.
Definitely another thing that, that Maggie and I have talked about, sort of when things settle for both of us is, how might we, have a stronger or more clarity around how we might have a trans-Tasman collaboration, which is sort
Nice.
of what's been happening
Yeah.
through what RFE World's doing, and then in turn how they'll be participating in Weaving Waters.
Yeah.
So no, I'd definitely love to come back. I mean, I've sort of been coming to Aotearoa now for about 10 years,
Oh wow.
mainly in Taranaki, so and relationship that's been evolving there with an organisation called Intercreate.
Okay.
So I really love coming over here and getting stirred up for being an Aussie.
I don't think we've said anything too disparaging.
No,
We've
you've
been
been
quite
pretty
good,
good.
quite respectful.
Yeah. No one's brought up Pavlova or Lamingtons yet.
But we do need to talk about Farlap.
Fair enough.
And Russell Crowe. No.
You can keep him.
Well, you have Russell Crowe. We'll keep Rustler Rock, which is what he was originally known before when he was a musician.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Rustler Rock. Have a look on YouTube. The videos
God.
are all old school, like 60s rockabilly stuff. It's hilarious.
Really?
Yeah, he's got like the coiffed hair. It's just, I digress, everyone. So
Before
funny.
he did Romper Stomper.
Before he did Romper Stomper. That's the one. Before
Wow.
he shaved his head and then said some very, very choice words. Because that would be really cool if you did come back, because essentially, and I'm working it out in my head, it's a 6-month exchange program.
I like that.
You come over in May. Maggie goes over in November, you're back in May, and you can literally, each 6 months, you just go out and hang out in each other's cool spaces.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's a great idea. Dr. Maggie Buxton, we need to make that happen. Thank you very much. Tracey, thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with us. This has been an absolute blast.
Yeah, thanks so much.
And it's always fun to just learn from artists that are just doing something fundamentally different.
Cool.
So, yeah, we really do appreciate it. Well, before you bugger off down to Taranaki and enjoy yourself, by the way. Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mark. It's been fun.
Awesome.
Cool.
There you go, everyone. Dr. Tracey Benson, photographer, person that uses biology and technology in a creative space and segment as well. So cool to have her over from Australia to be part of Whangarei's BIOS incubator. That was hosted by Awhi World down at the Whangarei Arts Museum. The incubator is running for, I think it's a year-long project, not just in Whangarei. I think it's also going out to different areas of the Northland region. So if you do see it, I highly recommend checking it out, because the things that they're doing are just amazing. I've gone down to the Whangarei Arts Museum a few times now, and I can say this with my hand on heart, no 2 days are the same. It's always something different, which was, it's just one of those rare things. It's, amazing. So, Maggie and Kim, thank you very much for putting that on together. That was phenomenal. And, hopefully you guys can do it again next year, because that would be amazing. I've flicked to my camera now. Man, what did I learn from... So, Tracey was super cool, and we were able to have a lot of laughs throughout the whole podcast, and still some really interesting things. It was interesting. It's funny that there were 2 things that I found really, really interesting about this podcast with Tracey. The first one, and actually, hang on a second. I reached down and grabbed my notes, and there's a specific reason for that. She says she was born in Ningi Ningi. Now, I'd never heard of this, but as she said at the start, she explains it as being a population within like its own entity, which is just amazing, which is super cool. And she celebrates Aotearoa for taking up the native language, and 100%, of course. Where it's, when I went to school, I think I started learning Māori when I was like 9 or 10, and you learn how to, say kia ora and haere mai and those things, and count and stuff like that. But cities were still. I remember friends and family saying the names incorrectly, and nowadays we're in a much more, I guess, enlightened time, and we're all very cognizant and conscious of trying to make sure that we pronounce things correctly out of respect. And she was very impressed with that. With her living and having been born in Ningi Ningi, it was very cool. So that was the first one. The second one that I found most interesting is that when she, the thesis that she did for her doctorate in 2001, talking about social media and groups of people being and the internet sort of being your own gathering places, and how this is like over 20 years ago that she's doing this research, and looking how relevant things are now. We had COVID where we weren't going to scouts or doing sports or anything along those lines. We were literally stuck at home, and we had to rely on things like social media to post about what was happening. We had to rely on things like Teams and Zoom calls and stuff like that to get our day-to-day business done. So learning about all of that and how relevant that is today, for me, that was definitely the second learning point that I got out of this podcast, and I thought that was really fascinating. So where can you, the listener or viewer, find out more about our glorious podcast that we have here? Well, as producer Andrew would say, for the visuals, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For audio, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And they are all Northland Artists Conversation. That'll be scrolling somewhere down here. All of them, they're all Northland Artists Conversation. One word, nice and easy, super simple to find. You can't miss us. If you're an artist or you know of someone who is an artist and you think they would be a really good value to the podcast, or you would like to recommend them to get their name out there, help them promote themselves a bit better, please contact us. You can contact us via email, and that email is hello@northlandartistsconversation.co.nz. The other way you can do it is just leave a comment on our Facebook page or a comment in our YouTube clips as well. That's another good way. And if you are someone who wants to support the podcast a little bit more, we also have a Patreon page, which we're going to be redoing as well, and I'm super looking forward to that. We have 2 tiers. The first tier we have is $5 a month. Very affordable, and that's called a cup of coffee, and that's just a way of saying, look, thanks very much, we really appreciate what you guys are doing, we think it's really cool. Second tier we have is $20 a month, and that's called Coffee Addict, because of course it is. That gives you a few extra bonuses though. That gives you early access to find out who's going to be coming on the podcast, gives you the opportunity to email us a question that you would like me to ask our guest. Third, it gives you a shout out for supporting us. I'm going to shout out our patrons now. I'd like to thank Lauren Roach, amazing, loyal supporter. Thank you so much. Michael Boter, super cool. Thank you very much. And Maggie Coco, who is probably somewhere around New Zealand or the world touring at the moment, because she is a talented musician. Guys, thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the world to us. So, where can you find Patreon? Well, there's 2 ways. You can go to... what's the first one? You can go to Google. You can type in Patreon. That's Patreon. Top right hand corner, search Northland Artists Conversation, log in, create an account, and then pick the tier that best suits for you, and then we can go from there. Second way you can find us is by going to www.patreon.com/Northland Artists Conversation. Again, it's all one word, nice and easy. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we do thank you from the bottom of our hearts. If you've been a Patreon supporter, or if you've subscribed or liked a video or commented, anything like that, we really do appreciate it. It means a lot to us, and we're going to continue to grow like we have through the support of you guys. So thank you for helping us out. Thank you for sharing. Please help us continue to grow. Your support is always welcomed. So I'm going to go to my wide camera. We're it's cold. We're in the depths of winter, and there's been some freezing cold nights, and then there's been some days where sun's come out, but it's still been freezing cold. So winter isn't coming. Winter is here, but that's okay. I won't lie. I'm looking forward to summer. Hopefully this year we have a summer. That would be glorious. But what's that old saying? It is what it is. Loving winter at the moment. It's super cool. The days are so much shorter now. I was driving home from work last night, and it was, I think it was like 5:20 or something like that, and it was just dark as anything. I was like, yeah, shit. We're in the middle of winter. Holy crap. So roll on summer, baby. looking forward to it. On that high note, guys, from myself, Mark, producer Andrew, editor Rocky, communications manager Marino, thank you so much for watching Northland Artists Conversation, and we will see you guys real soon.